Hi, Corey. So
Hey,
so glad that we can have this conversation. So something that I feel like is so pressing for so many people out there right now is their perception because we've been bombarded with so much information, so many scenarios that have happened in the last year and a half that people's perception, their faith, and above all, their belief, their inner belief of self and the world around them is dwindling. So I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on perception and how it affects the way we live our lives and our ability to advance in life?
that's a deep question, and with everything going on now, it's my heart goes out to a lot of people because a lot of people now are struggling, just like you said, people going through all kind of things, and um, I think it's imperative that we have the right perception, and our perception of how things is it determines everything,
Mm-hmm.
right? So I think if you see things a certain way, then a lot of times that's how they're going to be. I know I grew up in Detroit. I grew up with the perspective being everybody had like a funny perspective, especially when it came to money, right?
Mm.
So you ever grew up hearing things like money is tight, money don't
Yeah,
grow on trees, and
yeah.
all those kind of things gave us, I think, improper perspective when it came to finances, especially when it me,
Yeah.
like so. I grew up with my mom and we was middle class, but um, we still had a perception that money was difficult to come by, that it was hard to get.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up with that, and I think it gave me a poverty mentality.
Yeah.
Now, some people really fight that word. They don't want to hear, "Well, I don't have no poverty mentality."
Mm-hmm.
But if lack and poverty keep showing up in your life,
Mm-hmm.
at some point or another, you got to stop and say, "Wait, what's happening here?"
So with that, I want to pause you because I think that's a very, very key point when we talk about perception, and that is awareness. Because a lot of times we have experiences based on trauma or insecurities, which a lot of our insecurities come from trauma. And we have a pattern of being, of existing, habits and conditioning, the way we go about the world that we don't realize, we're not aware of, that are creating a different reality for us based on our perception, based off that trauma. I don't know if am I articulating that clear to you? So I just think that awareness is key. For example, there were so many things in my life
Mhm.
that, from abandonment, of being bullied, which I know many people can relate to, fear of rejection. I was always seeking validation. And it wasn't through so many experiences, even up till recent through the pandemic, that I realized I had to just take a minute. I think God and the universe just sat me down. I had to just take a minute and be still and be aware of these patterns that were of behavior, of thinking, which we've often talked about, that were creating an alternate perception that was not positive for me in my life. And I think that a lot of people feel stuck and they don't know how they think that things are just so negative in the world or maybe in their life. But I think you have to take an inventory on your personal perception and how you perceive the world. And there's a whole story I could go into that, just about my own journey uh, with activism, because there's a lot of things in the world that are very, very relevant, but you can't ignore all the other things that are beautiful, right? Because then your perception is only surrounding around the negative. Not that it's not important that it doesn't exist, but there's so much more to life than that. And I think that robs and has robbed a lot of people of their peace. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's true because the interesting thing about perspective and developing the right perspective and viewpoint, your perspective is going to be based upon your experience when you were younger, right? So it's this ancient saying, give me a child until he's 7 and I'll show you the man, right? And they used to
Mm.
say that way back in the day because
I heard that, but I never
yeah,
really understood that until now.
because
Wow.
Your perspective is developed up until the age of 7. You are on direct view and record, right? So when you 7 years old, when you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way up into 7,
Mhm.
you don't have your thinking, your mind is not developed in the point is to intellectually like figure things out, right?
Mhm.
You kind of in a like dream state. That's why
Mhm.
you could be a cop and you got your little cars and you
Mhm.
believe in this stuff
Mhm.
because your mind is not processing at a higher rate, right?
Mhm.
So you learn by direct record. So whatever you see, whatever people do around you,
Yeah.
that determines what you learn
In
up in the 7.
psychology, we call it. It's referred to as mirroring.
Right.
You're mirroring.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So if you're learning, if you're around people who have negative viewpoints on life and
Mhm.
negative perceptions, and they input that into you, you're going to grow up thinking that life is difficult or everybody you can't trust people. Whatever perception and perspective people put on you when you're little
Mhm.
would 95% be your living life right now.
It becomes your norm.
Right.
It becomes your norm. Just like in many instances, poverty or lack in certain scenarios, certainly certain places where I grew up to, is the norm.
Mhm.
Um, that's why I think it's so imperative for people going into these winter seasons and we're still in this pandemic is to realize, yes, there is information out there, but you don't have to cash every emotional check into your spiritual bank account, that an intellectual bank account, and your mental energy that is presented to you. Because the reality is, yes, there's a lot of tribulation going on right now. But I don't have to, for example, see another person as a biological weapon, an instant threat to me. That really was affecting people's psyche early on in the pandemic. I mean, people were fighting over toilet paper and water. And there was other people who were like, I'm just going to see how this plays out. That was a very good example, I felt like, at the time, of how much you have to be cautious of what you take in. Because at the time, that perspective, right, since it happened nationally, seemed to elicit a logical response. And that's why awareness is so important. I think you have to step back and see everything in totality. And that's a lot of things that we don't do. I know I've been guilty of it in the past, and uh, just see things as a whole. Because when we start to think that we know all the answers or that we are inherently 100% right, that means somebody else is inherently 100% bad or wrong. And even that perspective
As
can lead
well.
you down to a path of negativity. What do you think has been your biggest learning lesson or through the pandemic regarding perspective?
I think my biggest lesson and something that I really took away is I really developed a perspective. I only see what I wish to experience.
I love it. Can you say that again? Because you always say that.
Right? I only see what I wish to experience. So it's like growing up, like I said, I grew up with a perspective of, especially I'm just dealing with finances and money, because a lot of times that creates so much fear in our life of our provision.
Mm.
It's like, it's connected to everything.
Maslow's hierarchy of needs: your food, shelter, water.
Right. And so once people get to worrying about that, it creates this person that's irritated and mad. So we running around with people that's driving to work. These people are irritated, frustrated because one, they're going into places they don't want to be. They're in
Mhm.
relationships they hate, and their perspective is out of line. So I started to say, I only want to see what I wish to experience. So I started to monitor my thoughts. I
Mhm.
started to monitor my mind, like, what am I thinking about?
Mhm.
What's going through my mind every single second? And most people, unfortunately, they concentrate on what they don't want,
Mhm.
right? If you're thinking, if you're thinking about something, you're thinking about, wow, I don't have enough to do this, or I haven't paid this yet, right? So we keep our mind focused on what we don't want,
Yeah.
and that's the worst thing you can do, because as a man thinks, so he
So
becomes.
see, yeah.
So you have to fight to develop a perspective that you good, that
Mhm.
life is going, you're
Mhm.
going to be okay, everything's going to work. And another thing about perspective is Whatever your perspective is going to be your reality. So if we don't consciously fight to change our perspective based upon what we want and not what we don't want, then we can't determine what our life is going to be. So I hope I'm saying that right. So until we say, until we can control what our thoughts and our mind is seeing, we will never be able to control our real life. You know.
I think you said that well. And I think that also, if we could go into that a little bit deeper, is the fact that a lot of people, I feel, don't think that they have the power to control their perspective, right? It's like there's a pandemic, and then there's, you know, social and racial injustices and all these type of things that people just feel are constantly just coming into their radius, that they and I think that what I feel empathically is that there's a sense of, in this last going on now 2 years, of almost hopelessness, which we don't ever give power to that. But that's what I'm saying. The zeitgeist may be for a lot of people internally. And I think it's because they don't feel like they can change. A lot of times I've heard people on Clubhouse or various places, even you and I have had conversation, and people get this block where it's like, but how do I change my perspective? I have some thoughts on how to do that from a psychology standpoint, but I'm curious, how do people tangibly go about changing their perspective? What are some things you can suggest that they can do to only see what that which they wish to experience?
That's a good question. And I would say
Or what
that,
did you do? Easier question.
right. Well, I came to a point where I'm gonna talk to the
Yes,
people,
please
right?
do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it came to a point in my life that I got tired of the same stuff, right? I would make money and I would end up back struggling, right? I would make $70,000, and next thing you know, I'm looking in another month or 2 months. I'm like, man, I'm worried about finances again. So I started to just look at where my life was. And once the first thing I would say, you have to really be real with yourself. You got to keep it 100, as they say. You got to keep it a buck. You got to say, where is my life right now? Is it where I want it to be? And if it's not, then you just got to be upfront and say, okay, this is what I want to change. And once I found out what I wanted to change, then I said, okay, I kind of drew a picture. I drew a picture of, I asked myself a question. If I was operating at the best, if I was operating at my number one potential, if I was on top of everything I wanted to do, what would that look like? Right? So I asked myself, what would that look like? Corey, if you were on everything, you were on top of it 100%, killing life, what would that person look like? And I wrote it down. Okay, that person would be working on this. That person would be in shape. That person would care about their health. That person would want to eat right. That person will mean what they say what that mean. That person will execute right away on things. That person won't procrastinate.
Yeah.
Right? So I got all these things, and then I did that immediately.
I love that you got detailed about it.
Right.
Because I think that messes a lot of people up too, right? We want to be this. Oh, I want this. Everybody wants to be, but nobody wants to become. And the in between is the detail of what that looks like is so important, because you got to feel it, right? You have to really feel that. And how can you feel it and get in that frequency to even attract that if you don't know what it is?
If you don't know, right.
And if one thing I will say, and I kick it back to you, I know this for sure, and I think you've even said this too, if you don't plan your day, somebody else will. If you don't figure out what you want to see, someone else is going to show you what you want to see. And if you don't have awareness, you'll mess around and think that's who you are, that that's what you are. So I love that you took an inventory and got honest with yourself, got aware, and then said, this is what I want in detail. And then I think it's so important that you actually, people say, oh, you got to manifest it. I think the key to manifesting is feeling it, is getting in that vibration. A friend was going out for the job the other day, and he was saying, I'm going to prove all this stuff. It's not to prove anything. Focus on how you would feel being at that job, the people you're going to meet, the things you're going to do, it's a culinary job, so the food you're going to taste, what you're going to create, how fun that's going to be. That's what's going to pull it towards you, and that's what people are going to see and what's going to affect people. So how important do you think that it is to actually be in the frequency of that which we want to experience?
It's super important.
It's everything,
Yeah,
right?
it's everything. Is no, because the feeling. This is what I say. The feeling is the prayer. The feeling is the prayer. See, I think back in the day, people got so caught up in praying, they would just sit there and they would say, but actually, if you search the word prayer, if you go way back, it really just meant to meditate on something, to keep it in the front of your mind. So prayer wasn't physically like talking, but it was a feeling, it was a knowing.
A state of being.
Right, it was a state of being. Exactly. Yeah. It was, listen, what I do is I see, when I say I only see what I wish to experience, really, so I imagine what it feels like to have that end goal. What does it feel like? What does my emotions feel? How do I feel on the inside? I capture that feeling as if I had it now.
Yes.
And then I live from that feeling out.
Yes.
Right?
That's what people don't realize. It's not like, oh, I want this, and that's how it's gonna come to me because I want it, right? I'm just gonna focus on wanting it. No, it's I have this. And by having it, your gifts, the Bible also says that your gifts make room for you. So if you just believe it, which a lot of people don't, we all been there, but if you just believe it, then you feel it. I truly feel like it has no choice but to manifest.
Right, because what the thing is, things manifest in the physical world once the subconscious mind believes it.
Yes.
In this,
for better or worse.
Right, in the invisible world,
right.
in the invisible world, right? So what I had to do as far as poverty, I got into a point where I was just like, skip that. I'm sick of being broke. I'm sick of always thinking about money. This stuff I'm over it.
Yeah.
So I started to see what's the thoughts that was in my mind. So what I started to do is flood my mind with the thoughts I wanted.
I love that, to flood your mind.
To flood, to inundate your mind with what you want to see. So what I did for 8 months straight, if it wasn't talking about wealth, the affirmations that you and I talk about, remember those?
Yes, the I am affirmations.
Yeah, so every minute of my life, I started to pump what I wanted in my life. I made a whole playlist of hip hop. I love music, but every song came on had to be talking about money, about trips, about
creating your reality.
Exactly. I created the reality based upon what I wanted to see. So I got the end desire and I worked backwards.
That's the frequency you're carrying. It already happened and then it just flowed backwards from already happening.
So my subconscious mind, I'm like, listen, I'm not waiting to be rich. I am now. So I'm waking up now with that feeling. And once I woke, I remember when it happened. So about 8.5 months into me changing my subconscious mind, I'm in the bed, I'm asleep, and I'm listening to these affirmations over and over again. I am rich. I am supernatural wealthy. And then I heard, I am copious. I have copious amounts of money. And when I heard that, I was asleep, knocked out. But in my stomach, I could just feel the word yes.
Yes.
And I just stood up. I sat up and I was like, yes.
Yes.
Yes. And I got it. And at that point, my subconscious mind believed it.
I was gonna say it was that class, that reconditioning, building new neurological pathways in your brain, because people don't understand our experiences from childhood, that trauma, our triggers, it causes our neurons to fire a certain way. So that's why you have to literally be intentional and be aware about the way you think and how you go about retraining your brain. But then I feel like there's something that happens where it just not only clicks, but then you want to go greater, because you're starting to realize that you have this supernatural ability, that you are connected to God and life itself, and that you are the creator of your life. And I think a lot of people, we are so inundated with the news and what's going on that it will really suck that power out of you if you let it. Now, you can never lose it, but if you don't use it, you know what I'm saying, you won't have access to it. So I think a lot of people just don't realize how powerful that they are. We're literally all walking around as generators,
Mm.
and we don't even know it. So what happened after? I'm curious. So how did your life change after you started hearing that copious amounts of money, and like as far as
Everything changed when I remember waking up that day, and that day I didn't really see a physical change in my bank account,
did your perception
right?
change?
But I just knew,
You believed
yeah, I just knew without a shadow of a doubt that it was done.
it was
Like
done.
I mean, I can just feel it. I was happy. I was walking around
Yeah,
like, man, like ask yourself, if you had $1 million in the bank right now, how would you feel?
yeah,
And that's the feeling you have to. When they say you got to fake it till you make it,
yeah.
like literally, see. So this we talked about the subconscious mind learns up in the age 7 by repetition, by direct record, right? So whatever you see, whatever you hearing is going to become your life and the base of your life, right? So in order to change that, like I said before, you have to inundate your mind with the new belief system,
Yes.
right? So which means is if you heard money was funny your whole
Mm-hmm.
life, if you couldn't turn on the air conditioner because money, or you got a
Mm-hmm.
new car but you couldn't have the air on because
Mm-hmm.
of gas, all this poverty
Yeah,
mentality, plastic on the couch,
yeah,
you know,
right.
this fear of provision, you have to reprogram your subconscious mind to believe, no, that's not the right way. The right way is I am financially stable now.
You just said absolutely. You just said something that really struck a chord in me. You said the fear of provision. And that reminds me of, the great saying, it's not our greatest fear is actually not that we are inadequate, but that we are actually far more powerful than we believe.
Mm.
And it's something that we don't talk about. We talk a lot about fear, which I want to continue to speak upon because I think it's so important right now. Um, but it's like the fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of abandonment. But I think there's a very real thing called fear of success that some people actually do feel this inner calling in them. And the reason they're afraid is because it's unknown. Um, do you want to speak to that a little bit? Because I know we've had conversations about that, but that's a very real thing. I know I have dealt with that in the past, and I think that's where the self sabotage and imposter syndrome comes from. And perhaps it's because I don't know where that comes from. I wonder if it's because individuals are not nurtured enough to believe in self, or perhaps you get your validation from other people, and so you feel like that's your source. But have you ever experienced, or do you understand the concept, or have any opinion on the concept of actually being afraid of provision or success? Because a lot of times I know people who have always been in lack, that when something good happens, it actually scares them. They have a negative innate response to it,
Mm.
and that's something we have to be very real about and start asking ourselves when we're triggered, or we're going about things a certain way, or we have certain negative, non progressive uh, perspectives, such as fear of provision. Where is this coming from? And call it out right then and there, and say, you know what, this is probably a trauma response,
Mm.
from going without. But going full circle back to the question, how do you feel, or what are your thoughts on people actually having a fear of success and a fear of elevation and provision?
Well, I think it's real because if you think about it, when you growing up, everything is meant to dumb you down. Like from the childhood, everything, they tell you you can be whatever you want, but don't dream too high.
Right.
You
And
know,
then go to this place
right,
for 8 hours a day, and then get older and go to this place for 8 hours a
right.
day for someone
And
else.
it dumbs us down. And I think the system is set up to make you feel like you're less powerful than you are.
Come on now.
Because the system is set up to make you feel like, oh, you need all this stuff they have, which of course they charge you for, you know. But really and truly, I think everything we need is down in us from the beginning. I like to use this example of just say an apple seed,
Hmm.
right? If you think of an apple seed, even though it's so little, it literally has everything in it at the beginning to be a big, great apple tree, right? So in that apple seed, at the beginning, you have the leaves, the bark, the apple. Every single thing it needs is in that little seed. So if you think about it, everything that was ever created was created with the end
In mind.
in the beginning,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
This apple seed, if you plant it, everything that it needs to be a great apple tree is there at the
It's
beginning.
almost inevitable because if it rains, it's gonna grow. The sun's gonna come up. It's all right there. It's gonna grow it. It's gonna nurture it. But
Life,
so many of life is gonna nurture.
nurture
Life
it.
is a living force. But so
Exactly.
many people never plant that seed.
Right. And they are fearful of what, that they don't have everything they need.
Yeah.
You know, I have people that say, well, I'm gonna start a business, but man, I need to do this. I can't do this. Or I got a dream. I want to do music, or I want to do film, but I don't want to, we constantly thinking
Yeah.
that we need more in order to be successful. But everything you need is in you right now.
Yeah.
So all you have to do, the journey brings out what's needed.
Like your gifts will make room for you. That's what the
Exactly.
word says.
Exactly.
And I think a lot of people right now are feeling fear or pressure or anxiety because the world is changing predominantly because of COVID. And what's happening is if you're not plugged into your purpose, I feel like it's pressing on a lot of people. And a lot of people are having to face the fact that they either were afraid of failing
Mm.
or afraid of provision. But I think we're reaching a place now where, with so much to be quote unquote afraid of in the world in general, if you're able to move past that and only see what you wish to, right? Not saying you're delusional and not saying you don't acknowledge the things that are going on in the world, but you realize you that doesn't define your destiny, that doesn't impede the life force that already has set you up to win. You can still step into that, and you can not only do that in the midst of all this tribulation, but you can actually help make the world better.
Absolutely.
You know, but I think a lot of people are being woken. They're being activated, and it's an uncomfortable situation. But uh, I don't know if you have any final thoughts that you want to leave folks listening in. I've loved this conversation of how to change their perception and in spite of what they see around them and move forward into who they're called to be.
Um, I would say evaluate your life. E- Take the time to evaluate your life and be 100 with yourself, because our life tells us where we are. So just think about it when you see a needle, right? When you see, just say the needle in your car, when the hand is on, when it's on empty, that don't mean nothing's wrong with the car, right? That empty, that needle is only an indicator of where you are momentarily,
Yeah.
right? So if just because the car is empty don't mean there's something wrong with the car and the car's malfunction, something. It's just a temporary indicator of where the car presently is. But you can go fill the car up right away and that whole situation changes. So I'm telling you, when you look at your life and you may feel away, don't run from that, right? It's just a temporary indicator. So if you feel sad one day, if you're saying, man, I'm feeling down, like nothing's going on for me, you don't have to run from that feeling. Go talk to the feeling. Just say, okay, why are you here? What am I feeling? Right? What am I feeling? And then, you can use that feeling to guide where your life should be going. Because sometimes if you're supposed to be doing more, you'll feel it in your heart. You'll feel it in that, and you'll feel uncomfortable, like, I know I should be doing more. But then you can just execute, and that feeling goes away. So I say, first, take a real look at your life, see where you are. See if you're happy, see if you're not. And then after that, see what you want your life to look like. Because there's nothing that's ever been built in life without a blueprint.
Yeah.
Nothing's been built without a blueprint. So we have to look at our lives, see where we are, and then see where we want to go, right? You see the end. And once you see the end, then you write down what it's going to take for you to get to the end. And once you write down all the steps, then you just start executing one step at a time, one step at a time. What does it take for you to be great? Ask yourself that. And then do it immediately.
Yeah. Don't wait.
Don't wait,
Don't wait.
right? So if you say, I'll be a better person if I started getting up at 6 a.m., the next day set the alarm for 6
You
a.m.,
gotta do it instantly. And when that alarm goes up, get up.
right? Get up. And immediately you'll see your life start to change. So I think to develop the right perspective, we first have to evaluate our lives, see where we are, and then put a roadmap to where we want to go, right? And then just start doing it. But only see in the end where you want to be. Don't worry about the mess ups or where you messed up here, how
Yeah.
this messed up. Don't keep that in your mind. It's
Right.
a waste of time. Only see what you wish to experience.
And understanding that true success is not what we've been led to believe it is. True success is actually going from one failure to another without the loss of enthusiasm. And I think it's so important to be plugged into your purpose and what you truly love, because that's what's going to fuel you to want to keep going. So if you don't know what that is, uh, my advice would be to find something that you would actually do for free. Yes, we all need provision. Yes, we all need um, what we as a society in human form have created as money, commerce. You know, that's a whole nother conversation about energy of money. But we all need provision. But don't focus on that. Focus on the passion of what you were born to do. Oh, because the world needs your gift, and just start developing it. Start practicing it. Um, and I'm not going to say, oh yeah, your opportunity will meet your preparation, and that'll just be it. Yes, that's part of it. But the third thing is first figure out what you wanted, what you love doing, what you would do for free, what sets your soul on fire, right? Because remember what we talked about, if it's negative, you don't have time for it. So any outside stuff, please be informed, whether it's conversations, people, relationship, media, social media, it's taking your energy away. That's why you feel exhausted, depleted, and that's part of feeling stuck, right? But now you're putting that energy back into that one thing that you love so much, that you feel this burning desire to do. Do that, practice it, train it, but then give it away for free. Do it for free. That's my opinion. Do it for free. And I say that only because that's firstly the way you start. At least you're getting some type of momentum into your calling. Because I think a lot of people, which makes sense, especially during COVID, feel, well, I can't do X, Y, Z because I need to provide, or I need to work, or that's not practical, that's not logical. No, you should do it because it sets your soul on fire and it brings you joy and peace. And a lot of people think, I'll just end it by this. There is a saying I saw online. It was so prevalent I had to repost it, and it said, "Ego says once everything falls into place, I'll have peace. But spirit says, because I have peace, everything has fallen into place. So if that brings you joy, God put that into you for a reason." I felt truly if everybody was plugged into their calling, our collective consciousness would elevate, and we would not have a lot of the challenges that we have today, albeit that mankind is imperfect, but still. So I would say once you start serving others with that gift, the universe is going to open up to you. You know, Deepak Chopra says, always be asking, how can I serve? How can I serve? And just by way of the universe, and in my opinion, God, these factors will align, and your self belief that your reality will start to blend with your purpose. And that's how I feel like you achieve all the things that you listed once you take inventory of your life and what you want. Um, this has been such a good conversation.
Yes.
I really enjoyed it. I feel like
Thank you.
it could go on and on. So what's your if you had to just in a few lines leave folks with something encouraging regarding perspective or important, what would that be?
I would say follow your yellow brick road, follow your path. Your provision is going to be provided by your passion. So see what you love, like she said, Cierra said, see what you love, find out what that passion is, and go after that, because your passion is going to create that route, and it's going to have the right people there for you, and it's going to remove the fakers.
Yeah.
Right? So I would say focus on your passion, find out what you love, and get after it.
Well said. I would just say let go of what people think. Let go. Everybody is going through something, and it's so interesting that people will literally try to impress other people. Meanwhile, those people are trying to impress someone else, and no one's fulfilling their purpose.
Mm.
Um, You know, social media has done a really good job, I feel like, of making people question their calling and their abilities. And I would say, don't be afraid to get alone, to get still, to get centered, to take a real honest look at your life, what you like, and a very honest look at what you don't like. I've had to do it. And get into the vibration of what it would feel like
Mm,
if that was a reality, because it is. And know that it is. And everything else, let it fall by the wayside, including other people's opinions, because you got one life.
mm.
This life is so short.
One life.
So you might as well live it, and you might as well push through fear, because if you don't, you've already lost. But if you do, you have everything to gain. And no amount of opinion can ever impede or equal up to how it's going to feel to be in your purpose, or the peace that that will bring. So it all starts with your perception. Thank
Mm.
you so much, Corey, for this
Thank
conversation.
you.
Thank you all for being here. We appreciate you.
What's going on, y'all? Did a little something different today. Um, that was an interview I did with Cierra Foster, another person who's operating at a high level. You know, how do I change this on TikTok? Give me a second. Um, and so, yeah, perspective is super important. It's super important because without the right perspective, you can never get the proper things in life. You know what I'm saying? So you got to ask yourself, what's your perspective? Really, what is it? You know what I'm saying? Are you operating like you should? Or do you think that you're going to win? Or do you think that life is hard? You feel me? Because if if you believe that life is hard, then that's exactly what it's going to be. You know what I'm saying? Thank you. I figured it out right now. Thank you. So just letting y'all know, if you feel like life is hard and everybody is against you, then that's what you will experience. That's what you will experience. So it's important for us to have the right perspective. And that's why I thought it was so important to play that today, to be able to play that today, because the right perspective is everything, you know. Um, Let me adjust my camera. Okay, here we go. Yeah, the right perspective is everything, man. And uh, and you got to be willing to do whatever it takes to get what you need done. You know what I'm saying? Um, in the right aspect. You feel me? You can't just do anything, right? But perspective is so important. Perspective is so important. And we talked about, even in that interview, we talked about how you change your perspective, right? How do you do that? How do you change your perspective? Well, you change your perspective just the way you learned it, right? Through repetition. So you visualize, you get a picture of what you want your life to look like, right? And then you you in the interview you heard me say you flood your mind with the belief you want. That's what you got to do. Flood your mind with the belief you want, and that takes a lot of work, you know. But I'm telling you right now, it doesn't work any other way. There's no other way you're going to be able to get it right. There's no other way you're going to be able to get it. You know, uh, it's not going to come through you being a nice person. You know, it's not going to come through you going to church and you paying all the offerings and stuff you need to do. None of that's going to make anything change if you don't change your perspective. So I'm asking you to make a conscious decision today to change your perspective. Really think about what you're thinking about. How do you view life? How do you view life? Do you view life like everything's against you? People are looking to harm you. You can't trust people. Like, how do you view life? Right? And then you can look at how you view life. And look, Another big indicator on what your perspective is the current state of your life, right? So if you look at your life right now and you see things you don't want in your life, if you see things happening that you don't want in your life, that is a product of the perspective that you have in that area, right? That's a product of the perspective that you have in that area. So if you see yourself struggling every minute, all day long, subconsciously, you have a perspective that money is tight. Money is funny. It's hard to get. You got to work harder to get it. You may have a perspective that you don't deserve money. You may have a perspective that money is evil, right? And let me tell you something. You got to keep your mouth off people that got money, because you look at people that's got money, you're like, they are evil. They are, look at them. People, rich people, bad, and all this, or like even people that say, that got religious beliefs that money is the root to all evil. That was a saying that was in context to what they were talking about. That wasn't corporately, right? I feel like the lack of money is the root to all evil. If a person don't have money, man, you don't tell them what they do. Think about it, what people would do to eat, right? Think about what people do to eat if they don't have finances, right? And so what I'm saying is you can have a perspective. You got to look at your perspective on love. Do you have a perspective that is hard to find love? Do you have a perspective that is hard to find somebody that you're going to like? Do you have a perspective to say all men are dogs? All women are sack chasers. They go after money. You know, people can't be trusted. What's your perspective? Because if right now, if you don't have anybody and you feel lonely on the inside and you feel like, will I ever find somebody? Then you have to check your perspective on relationships, right? Your life will identify your perspective. And there's no way around it. It's no way around it, y'all. Your life will identify your perspective. What's going on in your life will tell you exactly what your perspective is of life. Because again, whatever your perspective is, your life will mirror. This is all scientifically proven. This is all scientifically proven. I'm not just saying this. You know what I'm saying? Let's look up some stats. Cause y'all know. Hold on. Mm-hmm. Let's look up some stats on what your life is. Okay. Your perspective is, just say, if you optimism, that's a perspective that you look at things like everything will be all right. I see the best in people. That's called optimism, right? So having optimism, just listen to this study on just that. Now, this article was published by the National Academy of Science. It found that people with a higher level of optimism had 15% longer lifespan and were 50 to 70% more likely to reach age 85 or older than those with a negative perspective. Y'all hear that? You're trying to live, right? Everybody trying to live. Everybody on the stream, you're trying to live, right? I'm trying to live. So if I can do something to help me live, put 15% on my life, I'm doing it. Again, the study found that people with high level of optimism had a 15% longer lifespan, and they were 50 to 70% more likely to reach the age 85 and older. Just operating in optimism, just seeing life as it's going to work and everything will be okay, right? We're learning things that help us jump the line. We're learning things that help us jump in front of people, right? And so that's the stuff we want to do. So if you can do something to help yourself be better, wouldn't you do it? Right? All right. So we just heard a statistic that literally said just by being just by being an optimist and thinking life positive, you had a 50 to 70% more chance of reaching age 85 and older. Okay, that's a crazy stat, bro. Here's another stat about health psychology. Right, this was published. A study published in the Health Psychology. Individuals who viewed stress as growth and opportunity rather than treat it as a lower level, they reported lower levels of pain and emotional distress. So people who viewed stress as growth rather than a threat, right? When people who view stuff that happened to them like, okay, this is a chance for me to grow, or even the bad things, because even in bad things that happen to you, it's a chance to get a lesson. See, I talked about, y'all heard me a few days ago when I talked about it's not a loss if you get a lesson, right? So if you learn from the situation, it's not a loss because now you have something valuable. You have education, you have knowledge. So a person who looks at stress as an opportunity to grow rather than a threat at their life, they reported lower levels of pain and emotional distress. You're talking about a natural painkiller. A natural painkiller. We got it in us. We're going to get one more. We're going to get one more. Excuse me. According to Stafford, according to Stanford psychologist Carol Dweck, people who believe that abilities can be developed through effort are more likely to succeed in academics, careers, and relationships than those who believe ability is fixed. Right? So people who believe that I can get better, I can grow, I can learn, I can grow, I can develop into a better person. They did better in academics, careers, and relationships than people that believed I am like I am. Hey, I'm who I am. I was born this way, ain't nothing I can do about it. You got a person with that mentality, they are less successful in academics, careers, and relationships than people that believe I can be fixed, I can develop, and I can be better. These are a few statistics, y'all, that shows you that your perspective is everything. How you see life is everything. How you view life is everything. So today we're gonna move different. We're gonna move different. We're gonna focus different. We're gonna jump on top of our mindsets, right? Live in optimism, right? Know that everything's gonna work on your behalf. Welcome to the morning shift with Corey Cofield, where we shift your perspective, right? We're here to tell you that you don't have to be mediocre. We don't have to just have mediocre conversations and just low level thinking. We can operate at on a high level, and that's what we're gonna do today. So we about to jump off here. We and I stay before y'all long. I had some house guests, you know, that I was happy to surrender my home to, and you know, some family, and I came back just in time this morning to jump on a live, in this little corner. I said, I'm still gonna do it. See, sometimes things change in life. Sometimes you get things that make you gotta shift, but you gotta be ready to shift regardless. My mindset, like I don't care what, you know, I had to, in my space, I ended up staying somewhere else, right? And like I said, I surrendered my place to my family, like here, y'all can stay here. Some unexpected stuff happened. But guess what? We keep moving. We still show up. I'm still here in the morning. They sleeping. I'm talking. That's why I'm talking low. You don't see my regular setup. You know what I'm saying? But I had to come still do the live. I had to still come show up. The lighting is not like how you normally have it and none of that. But so what? Sometimes you can't, everything not gonna lay out in front of you just so nice. But you still gotta show up and do what you said you're gonna do. And that's what we're here doing. That's what we're doing. So thank y'all for joining the morning shift with Corey Cofield. We'll be back tomorrow at the same time. If you can, go back and watch the lives. Go back and watch the interview. If y'all can, like I said, follow me on YouTube. That's Corey_Cofield. I'm on Instagram, all social media networks. If you feel like you want to sew into what we're doing, to help us get the merch, we setting up different things to be able to get people away and get people to themselves so they can get back to God. So if you feel like you want to give into that, it's CTE Cash. That's the Cash App. Corey Thomas Edward Cash. CTE Cash. Right? So you can do that. You can do that. Thank y'all for the ones that already done it and helping us push out our custom merch. We believe in wearing what we believe. So my mission is to make America dream again. And that's what I'm wearing. The merch, reminders, right? So we appreciate y'all for being with us on this God day. Only see what you wish to experience today. Only put in your mind what you want to see, right? And you will draw that to yourself. Life is amazing and so are you. I appreciate you. Come and now go do what it do. God day.